Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Canadian Football Central. CFL content for the fans, by the fans. And we have our week, I want to say it's 12, right? Week 12 review here.
Yes.
And, I certainly had a decent week. Rick, I'll have to ask you in a little bit how your week was, with the exception of the...
Mine didn't go too well, but...
Could have been worse.
Things considering, I'm actually quite impressed with the changes.
Fair enough. And so with that, we'll get right into this first game between Saskatchewan and Toronto. I was fortunately able to watch the entirety of this game, and wow, what a game. I mean, there's a few things we need to address here. Toronto Argonauts need to figure out short yardage. Good God. I don't even know how many attempts they had.
Three.
Well, no, it was more than that, and I'll tell you why. Because they were on third down twice on the one, and they couldn't get it in. But then the next time it was first and one, and so it was first, second, and third down. They couldn't get it done.
Sorry, I take that back. Three that
drives.
were there's four altogether.
Good.
Three that were turnover on downs, and one of them they got a touchdown on.
That's
so there's
crazy.
4.
That is absolutely insane. That you can't do that. That's gotta, and including, I believe there was a throw into the end zone where the ball comes out when the guy hits the ground, and that was ruled incomplete. Right? This was one time
yes.
they were on the one, and they said, "Well, if we can't run it, we're gonna try to throw it." And so that I struggled with that one in the sense of I could see kind of both sides to that in the sense of. Does he have full control of the ball? Not really, but then also that foot clearly goes down, it's such. I think no matter whichever way you call that, it's just not going to look good. So I actually don't mind with them going on with the call on the field, even though I think they overused that excuse of, well, there wasn't enough evidence to overturn it. And it's like, okay, well, you don't overturn anything. Some of that's bullshit. So, but if we're looking into it here, Chad Kelly, 322 passing yards, 24 for 39 with 0 touchdown passes, 1 interception. For the Riders, 18 completions on 29 attempts for Trevor Harris with 190 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. So in the touchdown interception ratio, neither quarterback really getting probably what they want, but Chad Kelly at least getting those passing yards. Brett Lothar, 4 for 4, very much needed that after a pretty crazy week prior. Haralahu goes 4 for 5 and wins the game on a rouge, which it's funny. A lot of people were complaining about this, and I kind of get it in the sense of the idea of winning a game on a missed field goal. But at the end of the day, is it very possible that Haralahu hits that? Yes. Do I think he was trying to hit it? Sort of. What I mean by that is if you're Haralahu, you want to hit the field goal. But more than hitting the field goal, you want to hit it with enough strength so that even if you miss, you get the single, which they did. And so it's one of those things where if that rule isn't the case and he knows he has to hit it, he probably just ends up hitting the field goal. I've also heard the argument of possibly eliminating the rouge if it's under the 3-minute warning. If it's under 3 minutes left in a quarter or a game or something like that. I've heard that as a discussion point, which not totally against. It's funny. I really don't know where I stand on this in the sense of it's very easy if you win the game on this to love it, and very easy if you lose the game on this to not love it. But then again, I also completely understand the idea of you're being rewarded for missing a kick, which, I mean, to be fair, that is true. I don't know what your opinion on all that is, Rick, though. You were there at the game.
I mean, that's one thing that I want to mention before I go to that. Mm-hmm. When Toronto came out on the field, it was a split reaction for those people that want to know that weren't there.
Okay.
Half the people booed, half the people cheered.
I think that's pretty much probably what I expected.
I don't know what the final tallies were for fundraising, but to see that he's already, just looking at the numbers while you're talking, he's already up to number 16th in the league, just off of one game, off of passing.
Yep.
My only downside is he didn't get any touchdowns.
Yep. He did not get any touchdowns. It's kind of what I meant by both him and Harris threw more picks than they did touchdowns. So probably not the ideal performance
and it's
of them in that regard. Although it's funny. Another thing I will say is that I think touchdowns can be a little bit of a misnomer in the sense of if you constantly get them all the way to the 1, and they just punch it in short yardage, it's like even if you did all that work, you're not getting credited with that touchdown. So I think, I'm more curious normally about touchdown drives. But, fair enough. I understand the stat. But it is something where you do want that to be a bit higher than what it was, especially since there were throws into the end zone that were just incomplete. And so,
I mean, you mentioned how Saskatchewan's defense stood up against the goal line.
Yeah.
But if you look at Saskatchewan's receivers, 2 had receiving yards over 60 yards. I mean, Emilus had 8 for 12.
And I think
Myers not great.
12.
Myers had 3 for 6. And then after that, Ajo had 23 yards.
Yeah. On just one reception, to be fair.
Yeah.
So was able to pick up a decent amount with that one, but if you got a little more than that one, it certainly would have helped.
I mean, if you want
receptions for Keaton Schaefer-Baker for only 11 yards, that's something that kind of stuck out to me, and I was like, ugh, Schaefer-Baker, that's a capable receiver you got there, but 2 for 11, not what you're looking for in that regard. If we're going on to the defensive side of things, I'm just going to kind of go through that. For the Saskatchewan Roughriders, top tacklers of the game, Cox Jr. with 5, as well as 5 for Thurman, and 5 for Marcus Sales with an interception for him. 4 for Lacombo and Milligan, as well as Fields, and Carney with a sack for the Riders.
You're going off of the score app, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
Because Rivas led the team with 10 defensive tackles.
Okay, well, it's missing that, so fair enough. You got that. I'll just let you, because it's easier for me to pull this up on my phone. So if there's any mistakes I make, you just correct me on that.
Yeah, no worries.
If we go on to the Argonaut side of things, top tacklers of the game, Jones with 7 tackles, as well as Milton with 7, and then 6 for Mechie with 4 for Mauger, I believe, and 4 for Priester, and then a sack for Smith and Holly, and an interception for Franklin and Amos. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and there we go. All that wonderful stuff. And then...
And yet, Grant does not get any kick returns.
No.
Every team has kind of figured him out by now.
Well, it's one of those things where this is now... You can tell clearly that there was a change in that film room in how they would approach Janneri and Grant. And they have figured him out, and... every team now they see the way that teams like Winnipeg sees. Now people see the way that Saskatchewan is prepared for him. Teams are going to make sure that they're not giving that up to Janneri and Grant, as he is just being able to do so much damage on special teams for the Argos. So we'll have to see how that goes. Certainly, certain teams' downfield coverage is a lot better than others, and so we'll have to see how much that affects them. Is there anything else that you have here for this game?
Not on my end.
Overall, decent game. Fun game to watch on TV. Me and my brother were losing our minds over all the short yardage stuff. 2019 victory for the Toronto Argonauts, which will bring us into the Friday game, where the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defeat the Hamilton Tiger Cats by a score of 26-23 in quite a close game, where arguably Hamilton outplays Winnipeg here. As a Bomber fan, I will say that. My goodness.
Actually, you know what? To be honest, I was thinking, okay, 3-0 after the first. I'm like, okay, not bad. I will take it for what it is. And then you guys scored 13 in the second quarter. I'm like, okay, 16-6. Could be worse. Expecting the unexpected. And then I don't know what was lit under the players behind in that third quarter, but 17 points would bring us to 19-20 for the lead after 3 quarters. And this is where Carter started like, oh my God. And then I'm texting him.
I sent him a text that just says FML, which is short for fuck my life. Because I'm dead and I'm thinking like we're screwed because at this point the offense for Winnipeg completely shuts off. It's actually kind of a miracle that Brady Oliveira somehow manages to get 120 rushing yards this game. To be fair, on 18 carries, Winnipeg really was trying to get that running game going. But like,
I will say I was quite surprised of how much Nick Usher was able to get to Zach Claros.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll tell you why I wasn't. I'll tell you exactly why I wasn't. So early on in the game, Stanley Bryant goes down. Now, key thing to note here, he does not go out from injury. If you watch this clip, I was there watching. Play ends, you can see the trainer kind of walking towards Bryant. I'm thinking, okay, what's going on? Looking at Bryant, he's not stumbling, no limp, no nothing. And so I hear someone say like, oh, it was probably a leg injury because, it's the offensive line. That always happens. I'm like, he'd probably be at least limping if it was. Mm-hmm. And so he goes down to a knee. And I'm thinking, okay, probably precautionary. Maybe the injury spotter wanted to take a look at him. And then he lies on his back, and I'm thinking, oh boy, what's going on here? And eventually, it's people messaging me about how they're pouring water down his jersey, and I'm thinking, is this heat stroke? So I don't know if we have any confirmation on exactly what it was. I'm sure Mike O'Shea probably in some of the press conferences after practices and whatnot in this coming week will most likely reveal what all that was about.
Was it even hot that night in Winnipeg?
It was hot. To be fair, it was. It was about 28 degrees, so not like boiling hot by any means, but it was hot. Now, one thing that's important to realize, I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but it gets especially for an offensive lineman, it gets stupid hot in that. In the equipment, just big guys by nature they're like big furnaces. They just produce, They produce more heat. Big guys just produce more heat. This is just their body produces more energy, produces more heat. The science, it's just biology. That's how that works most of the time. And so one of the things notoriously about football equipment is how tight it is. As playing football, it was so much effort to get those shoulder pads and the jersey on because you normally just leave the jersey on the shoulder pads, and it was so much effort to get it on. Normally took multiple people because it was just so tight, and the reason is because you don't want people to be able to grab it easily, especially if you're something like a running back or a receiver. You don't want a guy grabbing your jersey and having the easiest tackle in the world. That's a hindrance. So because of that, everyone has their uniforms very tight. Now, the side effect of that is that it contains heat very, very easily because of how tight it is. And so all this heat that you have from your body just gets hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. And when you're playing something like hockey, even though you're able to have that heat be contained in that because you're playing out in the ice and it's relatively cold in the arena, that'll cool you off enough, even though when you're playing hockey, it'll be relatively hot. But in football, it can get really hot, and it just perpetually gets worse. You're sweating. I can understand how this happened. Thankfully for Stanley Bryant, everything looked to be completely okay. He had went over to Victoria Hospital, which is less than a 5-minute ride from IG Field. It is literally right there. And so it looks like Stanley Bryant is completely fine, but they're going to make sure that he's all taken care of before he most likely gets back into the lineup. So could he be back this week? Yeah, possibly. I don't know. It's one of those things where they'll make sure to consult with the medical staff to ensure he's all good. But he was only the first offensive lineman to go down in that game, as Wallace then later goes off with an injury. Stanley Bryant, he had gotten stretchered off, IV in his arm. Wallace didn't need to get stretchered off. However, he was carted off. And so that right there now left the Winnipeg offensive line, which already was not the greatest offensive line this year. They've been very, very hit and miss. Neufeld has been out with injury. And then Bryant, now their strongest O-lineman, goes out with injury. Randolph then bumps from right guard out to left tackle, takes in that spot. And then Eli and Wallace kind of taking turns reps at right guard, right next to Kolinkowski and Eric Lofton. And Wallace eventually goes down, and then Eli's stuck in that spot. So at that point, they're down to just 5. And so if anyone else goes down, Jake Thomas, run block, pass block, here's a playbook, learn it real fast because you're going to have to get out there. But thankfully, it did not come to that. But all in all, just a pretty bad day for the offensive line. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to hold much of this on them. Injuries like that throughout a game could just completely decimate your O-line. An offensive line is built on working in unison. And when not just one, but 2 pieces of that get chipped out in the middle of the game, it is very hard to make that adjustment. So I'll give that.
And not only that, I just looking through these last 2 games, because I don't know if Butler, what to believe of Scott Milanovic, if Butler is banged up, a healthy scratch, or whatever you want to put it. But Greg Bell has 3 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving in 2 straight games. Like, not all, like 2 and 2. He had 2 this week and 2 last week.
Yep.
But he's making a name for himself.
Oh, absolutely. I think he's done a good job, and this is a great example of, you get the opportunity, you just got to go for it. Now, one of the things that I think is very key to note, both quarterbacks, 50%, 18 for 36 over for Zach Caleros, and Bo Levi Mitchell, 14 for 28 completions on attempt, so 50% for both.
I will say, even though he never threw a touchdown, I'm happy for Mitchell because he never threw an interception.
Oh, yeah, don't even get me started on that. If we want to talk about Calero's interceptions, picks 1 and 2, his fault. Picks 3, not his fault. Picks 1 and 2, one of them he just threw about 2 feet too high, and Jake Mayer passed about 10 bazillion miles above his head, straight to the defender, literally right into his hands. Just it looked almost intentional when you saw it. And the second one, just a bad read, where Milanovic was in man coverage and just completely threw in the wrong spot, allowing him to just take 1 step in front. And at that point, Caleros is beat. So those 2. The last one, receiver hits it up in the air, hoping that, they only have 1 available and they can't catch it. But if they hit it up in the air, they can get both hands on it. But who else can get both hands on it? The answer to that is the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And that's what they do, is they get that 3rd pick. I don't blame that on Zach Caleros. I blame that on receivers. Overall, it is what it is. One thing I was happy about, if we take a look at the receiving core here, Mr. Shamar Bridges, 2 for 5 on and TAR. That was what's TAR again for stats? 0. I don't remember.
TAR. That's targets.
Targets. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So he gets 2 receptions on 5 targets for 12 yards. And I will say, Ontario Wilson, 6 receptions on 10 targets for 72 yards. I'm not going to lie, Rick. I was happy to see that, as these are most likely the front runners for the CFL Rookie of the Year coming out of the East and West, most likely.
So it's funny you mention that, because I'm looking at the numbers. So McInnes leads the league with 954. So
You're talking all receivers.
All receivers.
Yep.
So he'll be the first to hit 1,000 this year. Justin Hardy is 804. Hollins is 792. Philpott 779. You have Samar Bridges 758. Ontario Wilson 690.
So
do you know who's in 7th?
Who's in 7th?
Timothy White, the man himself.
Which is crazy considering Tim White probably had what? Would you say this is his best game of the season so far?
One of them, because he had 134 yards.
10 targets, 134 yards for him. So good game by Tim White, who definitely needed it. I was literally in the crowd, and I'm seeing Tim White get reception after interception. And my mom's like, they got to cover White. He keeps getting the ball. And I'm like, how? He hasn't been getting it all year. Why is it now? And so I was so mad, because I was like, this guy sucks every game, and you're telling him the one game he's good is against us.
Mine's, I will give Chris Jones credit where credit deserves. Our first game in a long time where we do not give up 40-plus points.
No, fair enough. There you go. However, another performance I do want to highlight a little bit. He got 2 receptions on 4 targets. Mr. Brandon O'Leary Orange has returned to Winnipeg.
Yes.
Being able to get second in receiving yards. I think if you're O'Leary Orange, you're hoping for a little more than 31, but on 2 receptions, not too bad. Just want to make a little bit more out of those targets. If we're looking on the defensive side of things, top tacklers of the game, Wilson with 8 tackles and 1 interception. This over for the Ticats, that is. 6 for Katsantonis, as well as 5 tackles for Usher with 2 sacks. And did I mention the interception for Wilson? I think I did.
Yeah, and FYI, Ryan Baker tied him with 8 defensive tackles.
Interesting. I'm over on... I went to TSN to be more accurate, and it doesn't have that either. Son of a bitch. What are you just looking on the CFL, or...?
Yeah, CFL Game Tracker.
Oh, okay, because I think
CFL.
they deleted the CFL app, which really frustrated me.
So just go on CFL.ca.
Oh, I'm using my phone because I can use my phone.
Yeah, so you can still...
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of more difficult because I don't have 2 monitors, so it covers everything up.
Oh.
And then as well, 5 tackles for Usher with 2 sacks. I already mentioned that. Sunderland with 4 tackles. And that's it for the Hamilton side for the most part.
And don't forget, Jamal Peters had the interception.
Jamal Peters had the interception, that is right, too.
Richard Leonard had an interception, and David Menard had a sack.
That is true. I forgot to mention those. They were on here. I just completely missed them. Now, if we look onto the Winnipeg side of things, I do want to... Why am I having this pop up right now? Here we go. If we're going on to the Winnipeg side of things, top tacklers of the games, Tony Jones with a forced fumble on special teams.
Oh my Lord.
To help. And honestly, this is probably what wins Winnipeg that game.
I was going to say that
special teams tackle, or that special teams forced fumble, and then which then gets ran all the way back to the house for a touchdown, is probably what wins Winnipeg the game here.
The TSN turning point?
And that was your TSN turning point. I can say that. I'm using the TSN app. So I can very much say that. Brendan Alexander with 5 tackles and a interception that they didn't count, which really frustrated me. And then if we're going past that, and then Ayers and Devin Adams and Terrell Ford, all with about 2 tackles. And then overall, just very dispersed game defensively. Not really guys getting a ton of tackles, but just a lot of guys getting 1 or 2.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I remember that interception that should have been yours. Wasn't there a play that should have been ours and I'm just forgetting?
Oh, yeah. No, I want to clear this up right now. When everyone's complaining about the reffing of this game and how it sucked, I'm going to start by saying I agree with you. It sucked. However, I don't think it sucked in the favor of the Tiger Cats. I don't think it sucked in the favor of the Bombers. I think it sucked both ways. As Brendan Alexander clearly gets an interception, which not only do they not rule that as incomplete because, the Ticats player doesn't have possession of it, they somehow rule that as him getting a first down, which, again, it's one of those things you can call it either an interception because Brendan Alexander has it, or you call it a pick, or you could call it an incomplete because, I don't know, maybe you don't think he has enough enough possession. You call it the one thing that doesn't make any sense. And then at the end of the game, I'm getting there. If we're I'm a Bomber fan. I love my Bombers. Kenny Lawler, about 6 feet offside. Seriously, that wasn't even close. That last play of the game where they got the touchdown. Now, to be fair, do I think it really affects the play? No. He probably throws that regardless. But at the end of the day, that's still a shit call, which should have been called offside, but wasn't. Again, I don't know if this affects the outcome of the game, because also remember, if that ball with Brendan Alexander gets turned over, Winnipeg turns that around, and maybe they at least grab a field goal out of that. Hamilton, I believe, scored a touchdown on that drive. So, again, it's one of those things where I don't think where you can play devil's advocate and you can go all, this helped one team or this helped in our... I think it just sucked in general. And it was one of those things where I thought we were going to be safe because Andre Pruitt didn't have to force the words out of his mouth of every call. The game.
First off, it wasn't Andre Pruitt doing our game. It was Tom Valesi because Andre Pruitt
I
did
know.
Thursday's game.
I was saying because we didn't have him, I thought we'd be
Oh.
good, but we weren't. No, seriously, listening to Andre Pruitt is like hearing an RFK Jr. speech. It's just absolutely painful to like your ears.
I just love the fact that Brandon Alexander interception that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Not only did they say first down, but also down by contact.
This is a terrible call. This is a terrible call. The same way that one on Lawler was. I will fully admit that. He was totally off.
I will be honest. There was times when I was messaging you back and forth when I seen Oliveira on the sidelines. I'm like, oh. Winnipeg's in trouble now because they don't have Oliveira. Now they have to bring in Augustine. And then
okay.
Oliveira was fine.
And also, I think a lot of people don't realize how good Johnny Augustine is. I mean, it's one of those things for a backup running back. This guy is very capable. He's a very capable running back. It's actually, I'm not going to lie, I'm surprised we've been able to hold on to him and that a team hasn't actually taken a chance on him in a starting position, as he's been very similar to Drew Brown as a quarterback in the sense of that every time he's been forced into that starting position, with essentially no notice where Oliveira goes down or he gets a little shaken up and he needs some time out, or even near the end of the game where if the Bombers miraculously somehow this season are winning by a decent amount and they feel like they can take Oliveira out of the game, Augustine goes in and he kills it, seriously. Overall, very happy with Johnny Augustine. Very fortunate we can have him as backup, as it's a guy that if he got a starting job somewhere else, whether in the CFL or the UFL, wouldn't shock me.
So, after week 12, we can both safely say both of our quarterbacks are leading the league in interceptions.
Yeah, yippee.
However, Bo has 412 more yards than Jake Mayer in second place does.
Now, here's my thing, though. But then as well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have 3 more wins than the Hamilton Tigers. I
honestly think you
guys almost started playing spoiler before Labor Day. I was like, no! We need this win very badly. This is a very good week for Winnipeg. They were the only West team that won, and it was all East.
You know what's even better? Is that it even gets even worse? Because depending on how the next 2 weeks go, Edmonton can go from 5th to like 2nd with 2 wins.
And Winnipeg could go from 2nd up to 1st. And Saskatchewan, it will really depend on how Labor Day and the Banjo Bowl go between these two teams.
Yeah.
Saskatchewan, fortunate for them, they do already have 1 win against the Bombers, so they only need to win one of the 2 to have the tiebreaker. But Winnipeg with some big potential. They've seriously stormed up from second last in the division up to second place past BC and Calgary, and have really helped themselves. And they have the tiebreaker with both teams, which really is huge.
Just the thought of everything. Now, had Hamilton have won against Winnipeg, we would only have been back 4 points out of 3rd in the West.
Although I will say I don't think it would have done as much this week simply because every other East team won.
No, I'm just saying, like...
Yeah.
And to think that 3rd place in the East could lead the West...
Yeah.
Is very nerve-wracking.
As of right now, yes. Whether that stays, who knows. But currently, that is the situation. Overall, 26-23... in a bit of a crazy game that I didn't necessarily expect to be that crazy. But it was a crazy game, 26-23. Bombers narrowly edge out the Ticats for the victory.
However, if we go to the next game, this is where the craziness begins this week, my friend.
BC falls by a score 34-27 victory for the Ottawa Redblacks over the BC Lions on the Saturday game, 24th. Lions able to consistently put up points throughout this game. Ottawa able to do the same, though, however. And it was one of those things where Ottawa was able to just put up a bit more. And that is able to get the Red Blacks the win. If we go to the quarterbacks here, oh my God, 28 for 37, 390 yards for Drew Brown with an average of 10.5 yards on average. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. That is the Brown crown that I know.
You want to hear something even more interesting?
Shoot.
So, through both games since Rourke has been back, 30 for 56, 53.6%, 360 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
Yikes.
And they're paying this guy over $700,000 next year and the year after.
Oh, yeah, no. People need to realize that if you take into account his entire contract in the Canadian Football League, if you add up all the money he's making on this contract, it's over $1.5 million. Holy crap. Seriously, that is a ludicrous amount of money. Rick, you lagged out there for a second. I said that Rourke, over the course of his contract, is making $1.5 million, which is absolutely insane.
Were you still recording or no?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm still recording. We're good. We're not cutting here. No.
Okay. No, I was just like...
it was only,
so,
it was only a flesh wound. We're good.
So here's the thing.
Python reference. I hope people get that.
So here's my question is, if you give someone that kind of ridiculous contract, what does that say for the good quarterbacks that want an even better contract in the that can prove?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I don't think that's gonna do much in the sense of that. It's one of those things where if Rourke doesn't figure it out, which I think he will figure it out, to be fair. If he somehow doesn't figure it out, though, I think the BC Lions, without directly saying it, they'll essentially be like, we screwed up. Like, we made a mistake here. Like,
yeah, but I'd have to look in to see how much of that is guaranteed money, though.
Yeah, no, that's true. And there's a lot of capable quarterbacks now. It's one of those things where I think some of these prices will start to go down. I think Rourke's premium was so high just simply because of how good that year was, and now that he had that NFL pedigree. But that's a benefit that a lot of quarterbacks do not have. And so I don't think they'll be able to have that immense negotiating power that they maybe could.
So, to bring out the bigger elephant in the room, I don't know what is with these games, but we had another player leave via an ambulance this game, and that was Jalen Acklin.
Yeah.
Left this game in an injury, too. I understand players get hurt and injured in that, but what is with all of the players leaving by ambulances as of late? We've had so many of them. I've never seen this many.
It's scary. It's seriously scary, the amount of guys that are getting stretchered off the field, ambulance, all that sort of stuff. And so I'm glad that the league has allowed the use of the Guardian caps. It's one of those things, only one guy, I believe, has worn it in the game. I'm not going to lie, I think in a few years, I think we'll start to see a few more of them pop up. And then I think at some point it eventually might even become commonplace for those to be worn in game, which I'm totally fine with. I know a lot of people don't like the look of it. Do I think it looks good? No. But, I mean, we're talking about the well-being of the people here, not just, and I'm not even going to call them players, people. They are people. So that's very, very important. Now, on a bit of a less grim note, Sean White missed a field goal. That's right, Sean White, 4 for 5. The streak is over. Brock Lesnar has defeated The Undertaker. Hell has frozen over. Sean White has missed that field goal. Do you know how long that field goal was, Rick? I'm curious.
No.
I don't. Or no, it wasn't. He didn't miss it. Sorry, it was blocked. This was in the second quarter where he goes for a 37-yarder. It gets blocked, and it goes into the end zone for a single. Gets, tipped, just wasn't able to get the field goal on that. And I'm not going to lie, this might sound a little weird here, but you want to know something, Rick?
What's that?
I think this helps the Lions. Do you want to know why?
Why is that?
The Lions for so long have been obviously protecting it. Now, I'm not trying to discount Sean White. Sean White's a damn good kicker. There's a reason he hit 45 straight. I'm not going to discredit for that from him at all. However, how many times did the BC Lions make a field goal attempt over 50 yards this year? I'm curious what that number is. I don't know. I doubt you're able to grab that. But I'd be curious exactly how many times they did that, in the sense of that, at least from my observations, every time they have a long kick, and I mean a long kick, they haven't gone for it. Not because Sean White isn't capable of getting it. I think he is. But because they don't want to risk him losing that record. And so I think him losing that record helps the team, because now they can go for those long ones and not be that worried about it. I mean, a few weeks ago in that game against Edmonton, I see he hits a few 43-yarders. I'm just looking back through the games. Then there's the shutout against Winnipeg where no one gets any points. And then week 7, hits an 18-yarder, a 22. He hits 152 here. Okay, so he hits 50 in the Calgary one. The Calgary game. So that's 1. He hits a 50-yarder. Okay, right here, and then 44. So he hits 2 50-yarders as of week 6. Week 5. I'm just scrolling back. I'm just curious how many we have. So that's 2 right now.
There's actually someone that I'm trying to reach out to right now that has all the numbers.
Oh, does not hit it. I'm just looking for how many he hits, because this was his first missed kick of the year, right? Because I mean, that's 45. There's no way he hit 45 this year. But I'm just looking through here, and I'm just going game by game, Rick. So I have all this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He hits a 47, and then if we go to week 1. Does he hit a 50? This
is
he does.
3 weeks. So as of 3 weeks ago, and again, I'm trying to get the updated numbers because I know someone in our Discord chat that does all the tables and everything. As of week 9, White was 3 for 3 for 50 plus.
Yeah, I just checked it. As of right now, that's not even just to week 9, that's to right now. I went through every single game and checked the little sheet. He has only attempted a 50-yard or plus field goal 3 times this whole season. If you're going to try to convince me that they didn't have more opportunities to go for that where they decided to punt, I call bullshit. They totally did. I can think of a few times in that game against Winnipeg where they absolutely could have, but they didn't. And BC has been protecting this record, and I think it's kind of hurt them because they've been very, very focused on keeping that player stat. And I think you got to focus on those team stats. Obviously, player stats are nice. You want players to be doing well. But at the end of the day, the well-being of the team's got to come first. I think this will help the Lions, as I think the Lions now, if they're in a situation where they're 52 yards away, and I'm talking like the ball would be spot at the 52 or whatever, 52, 54, anything under 60, hell, even maybe 60. They go for it. And you're not expecting a hit there, but if you get a hit, that's 3 points on the board you didn't have before. And as we've seen in the CFL with how unpredictable it's been this year, that can win you games. Seriously, it really can. And so a bit of a burden, I think, lifted off there. But if we're looking over here at this game on the Red Black side of things, Mardner, 3 receptions, 95 yards, 2 touchdowns, which... Is it just me, or had I really know nothing about this guy before this game?
So Nick Martyr was drafted this year. That's
I was
why
about
you know
to say,
nothing about him.
I think this is a new face. I'm actually going to search up his CFL.
Yeah, he was drafted second. I want to say between 2 and 4 overall.
Let's see here. So
this year,
overall, this year he has played 10 games, 14 receptions, and 15 attempts, 190 yards. Keep in mind that he would get, if I'm looking here, 95 in just this game on 3 receptions. Hardy, though, with 11 receptions, 114 yards for him. So good game for him. I'm just looking here. Although Martner, solid game for him. Oakville, Ontario. Just went to Auburn. He's only 25 years old, so still young. 6'6", 208 pounds. My God, that is a tall man. So overall, good game for Martiner. And as well as Braylon Addison, 5 receptions, 92 yards, a lot of receiving yards here for the Red Blacks. But then again, that's what happens when you have a quarterback that throws 390 for a game. Justin McInnes leading the charge in the receiving corps there for the Lions. And if we go to the defense, top tacklers of the game over the BC Lions for Rugamba, he would have 9 tackles and an interception. And then Ely, I believe that's how you say his name, or Ely would have 9 tackles with 1 forced fumble. And then if I'm going down here, Varga with 6 tackles, 4 tackles for Lee. And then I don't see anyone else here. Did they get the fumble recovery on that or no?
So fumble recovery, Ely had that. Varga had the forced fumble.
Oh, okay. So TSN got that
and,
wrong. TSN,
and then
guys. You guys, TSN. Okay, not gonna lie. The score up, I understand that being wrong. TSN, you broadcast this shit. Come on.
Tavari or Tavai. Johan. I apologize for pronouncing your last name wrong. He had a forced fumble. Christian Covington had a fumble recovery. But that's it for BC, as BC's defense was nowhere to be found.
Yeah. No. So, big win over there for the Ottawa Red Blacks, who just continue surprising people, just continue to really play above expectation. I said kind of going into this year that Ottawa was a team to keep in mind where they might be able to get it done. We had predicted them to finish quite low, but it was simply because they've had what they've had in prior years, but they just haven't been able to figure out how to put it together. I think they finally figured that out for this game, which leaves us with the Sunday game. The Montreal Alouettes narrow victory, 21-17 over the.
Oh my lord! I was freaking out on this.
Yeah, I heard this is
only because I was watching something else at the time and I was following along with my phone. And when I seen it 17-6 at halftime, I'm like, what the heck is going on with Fajardo? Then I look in the second half, I'm like, just had a slow start.
Yeah, Cody Fajardo, 22 completions on 34 attempts for 336 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, with an average of 9.9. If we're looking at rushing, Fletcher leading the charge for the Alouettes. 11 carries for 54 yards. No touchdowns for him. Receiving, though, Cole Speaker able to get a lot on 6 targets, 5 receptions for 107 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Rambo able to go for 95 yards, 4 targets, 3 receptions for him. So good job. And if we're going on to the defensive side of things, I'm going to go to CFL.com to ensure I have
just before you go onto the defensive sides. Austin Mack, 3 for 8 for 32 yards in his return to the CFL.
Well, it's going to take a little bit of time.
If you've learned anything, if you make a career in the CFL, do not go to the NFL, because when you come back from the NFL,
I'm not going to necessarily say that, and I'll tell you why. Because it's not guaranteed. It's one of those things where I think if you're going to go back to the CFL, you got to practice with that CFL ball for a while. I think you need to take your time before you I don't think you jump right from one right into the other. I'm not going to blame guys for going to the NFL. I totally understand the money there is life-changing. Seriously, it is. So I totally get that. But at the same time, it is a bit of a different game. So I think I think guys just underestimated the adjustment that they'd have to make. They thought,
not only that, but don't just rush them into their first week.
That's the other thing. I think some of this is also on the teams being a little impatient and trying to get that done. I think Ottawa finally has gotten it right with bringing the way they brought Jeremiah Mazzoli back into the fold and having him take a bit of time, as they rushed him back before, and that didn't go so well. And so if we're looking here at some of the defensive stats, though, for the Montreal Alouettes, and then I see here, why is this minimized? Tyrese Beverett with 10 defensive tackles with 1 tackle for loss. Sankey with 8 tackles. And then Kenton Arku with 5 tackles, 2 sacks, and 1, what's STT?
Special teams tackle.
1 special teams tackle. Oh, okay, so they got all of this. There you go. And then Ento with 5 tackles. And then Titus Wall, 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 special teams tackle. And then if we just go down the list here, 2 special teams tackles for Gagne, 1 for Mason, 1 for Antwi, and 2 for Hamlin on the Alouette side. If we go to the Elks side of things, Nick Anderson, 8 defensive tackles, 1 special teams tackles, 6 for Leon O'Neill Jr., so 6 defensive tackles for him, 4 defensive tackles for Noah Taylor, 1 sack. And then if we're looking down the list here, 1 tackle for loss for Kai Gray, and then 1 sack for Elliott Brown, 1 interception for Devondrick Bynum, as well as 1 special teams tackle for Mathis, 2 for Maru, 1 for Maga Clements, I believe is how you pronounce it. I butchered that. I definitely butchered that. And then 2 for Miembi, I believe. I completely screwed that up. And then 1 for Hunter Stewart. So my apologies for all of the butchered names.
According to the social media for Edmonton, fans are calling for Edmonton to release Boris Beatty and to bring in your friend of the channel, Dean Faithful, as the new kicker.
I understand that sentiment. I do.
Because now Boris Beatty is the worst kicker.
I said at the start of this year that Dean Faithful is just as good as Boris Beatty, and I was laughed at. And now everyone is begging for my boy to come up to the main roster and get his shot. This man is a capable kicker. He is. And one of the things that I noticed in him when he got that kick in Labor Day last year, this is a clutch kicker. That is extremely important, as there are kickers in this league that can kick decent numbers but are not clutch kickers. Mark Leggio! And so...
Hey, listen. He's done his share. He's done well.
Check him out playoffs. That's where it'll hit you. But to be fair, I will give him this. He has had a much better run in Hamilton than he ever did in Winnipeg. I will give him that. So has he changed? Completely possible. It is. But I have my doubts. Anyways, though, I always go on my Leggio rants. Sorry about that. But yeah, no, Boris Beatty very much could lose that position. If we're looking here for the Elks, though, Kevin Brown, 16 carries, 105 rushing yards. Bethel Thompson, 21 for 33, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, average of 6.1. Longest pass for him is 25. Longest pass for Cody Fajardo, twice that, 50 yards. And, I mean, it's one of those things, the Edmonton Elks, in my opinion, it's their offense that loses them this game. This defense is able to keep the Montreal Alouettes to 21 points. Not too bad. No offense in the second half of this game. 0 points. So 2 big fat donuts, 1 in the third, 1 in the fourth for the Edmonton Elks. And so it's one of those things where it's like if you can't produce for an entire half game of football, then you're not going to be winning games. So that's all I got. Is there anything you got?
It's going to be an interesting race to the finish this week.
Oh, absolutely.
So don't forget, we no longer have no Thursday night football games anymore. That's it for the rest of the year.
Yep.
Starting in September, we now have 3:00 Saturday games.
Yep. We're going to have 2 games on the Monday then. For this week, for Labor Day. This Labor Day weekend.
So that means practices probably won't start till Thursday this week.
Alrighty. Well, anything else you got there, Rick? Besides stuff that we're saving for the preview.
Yeah, Ticats got to beat them Argos
Fair
and
enough.
bring home the Ballard Cup.
And one other thing I do want to bring up, I think this is very, very important. Later today, and when I say later today, I mean a few hours from now. I'm not very, very long at all. Later today, from when this video is being uploaded, we're going to be uploading another video where we talk with Connor Sauve, as well as Dallas, about CFL Fights Cancer. We're going to be talking about kind of all of our journeys, just kind of going into learning about Canadian football, the CFL. It's a really, really fun, warm-hearted video. Really encourage you guys to watch that. And then also the description of that video will have a link to both Connor's Twitter with all of his updates about the walk they're doing from BMO Field over to Tim Hortons Field, and how you guys can join that and contribute in all these sorts of different ways. And then also a link where you guys can donate for CFL Fights Cancer. Over $31,000 have been raised. I definitely am going to be submitting a donation to that, as I think it's just a wonderful cause. And I encourage anyone to do so, and anyone to support in any way they can, whether that is donating, whether that's being able to go there for the whole walk, a portion of the walk, or you know what, maybe you're nowhere in there, or maybe you don't have the money to do it. If you're able, even a repost, anything is appreciated. And thank you to anyone who's able to contribute in any way, no matter how big or how small.
I was going to say, those people that want to repost, I will, on Friday and Sunday, I will be taking part in the walk. So I will be posting stuff over on Twitter at FMFan9 if you want to go over there and spread the word.
Absolutely. So please, guys, if you guys can do absolutely anything in regard to that, anything, like literally even a repost, anything, would really, really appreciate it. Connor and Dallas and everyone with CFL Fights Cancer are working really, really hard to get this going. They've raised a ton of money to help those very much in need. And so every little bit helps. So thank you to all of you for all that.
Oh, Carter, one last thing. One last thing I want to give a shout out for that I just found today.
Go for it.
If those people that want to try to get into OUA football, and we're talking about CIS University football, if you go to OUA.tv and register, it's free to register. You have free access to all games until October 25th. Yeah, so for those people who want to watch the upcoming prospects for the upcoming CFL draft, the ones that are playing in Canada at least, you have until October 25th of 2024 to go on to OUA.tv, register to watch all OUA soccer from the East Coast to the West Coast.
So there we go. Is there anything else you got there, Rick?
Nada.
My mic and all that disconnected and stopped working, so I had to go to this, but got all that stuff in there. So hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you can, hit the little notification bell. Helps out a ton. And if you are listening on Spotify, if you can give 5 stars, really appreciate that. Got a lot of viewers over there on Spotify. Hi, Connor. And so really appreciate all of the viewership and all the wonderful stuff you guys bring in. Is there anything
also
else?
By the time this goes up on Spotify, I just tonight uploaded the Ticats preview. So you'll have that. You'll have the review. This
is over on Ticats Talk Network. Link to that in the description below. Oh no,
I was talking about Spotify.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay, I see.
The Spotify channel.
I see. Do you put your Ticats stuff on there?
On our Spotify stuff?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
No, I was saying I just uploaded our mid-season report card.
Mid-season video. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I was getting confused there for a second. If you want to check out my Bomber game reaction, go over to Nolan Hockey Podcast. There, link to that in the description below. You can see my very confused reaction to the Hamilton-Winnipeg game. A lot of fun stuff.
Which I still got to watch.
There you go. There'll be a lot of good stuff over there. I'll have to check out your video when you got that out, unless you already have it out. I'm not sure.
No, I don't. I haven't done it yet.
Fair enough.
I will do it this week.
You can get on that at some point. I'll then give it a listen. So, again, really appreciate all your guys' support. Peace, love, and positivity to all you wonderful people at home. I'll see you guys next time.